Hello and welcome to week 3. This week began with an orientation meeting held by our program leaders where they basically gave us more information about stuff going on while we're here and events they're holding while we're here. And then a group of us after the meeting went on a walking tour to a market called Borough Market, which, if you know, is the market that was hit. And we had lunch at the market. After we went there, we went to Tower Bridge. And as we were walking there, there was a memorial held for the London Bridge victims with all of these flowers and these warm affirmations on a wall nearby. And it kind of reminded me of this thing my school did this year for the election. We had a bunch of colorful papers on this wall with warm, loving affirmations, and it really just shows the support and love in this city. And it was a very powerful thing to witness. I just got back from my first day of work and I have exciting news. I am going to be directing, producing, casting, lighting, designing my own show. Now, the show is already chosen for me, but I get to do the rest of the work. I'm also going to be in a show in 2 weeks, as well as taking an acting course at this theater and a stand-up comedy course, which I will be performing a 2-minute set. This is definitely a lot more work than I thought I was getting into, and I could not be more excited to do all of it. When I first walked in, my boss said, "It's a small theater, but you know, that just gives you the opportunity to do everything." And he was right. I'm acting, I'm directing, I'm lighting, I'm, managing. My boss also took me to Greenwich after work, and we got to see the clock that holds all of the time for the world, as well as stand on the prime meridian. And I took a picture with his dog, Abba. She's the sweetest dog ever. I am learning about lighting tomorrow. They have an LED system, so it's all computerized except for like 2 lights that are just like flick on and off. It's really, really high tech. They don't get hot, so like you aren't really sweating on stage a lot. So I learned the lights, and it's very simple. Once you know, during a show you would end up just, pressing play, and it would go through all the lights because it would have it timed out specifically to all the cues that you need in the time. For the show that I'm directing, I'm going to be setting up all the lights and the cues and actually backstage doing all of the lights and sounds during the show. So for the rest of the week, I sent out casting calls for a show that's getting put on the weekend after I leave, and I wrote my audition requirements for my casting, as well as setting up my new theater production company called Reese Productions. I mentioned that I was going to be in 2 shows. Unfortunately, one of those shows got canceled. Things happen, and I was prepared, I was ready, I was excited. I have the script still. I can do it in the future. We'll see what happens. But the show I'm still currently in is a show all about Russian culture. And then I also am doing a Russian dance, and I get to learn some choreography and dance to some traditional Russian music, which will be interesting given the small space that this theater has. Friday, I had a late start to my day, and since my sister doesn't work on Fridays, we ended up spending the morning together. And since the show got canceled, that meant the rehearsals got canceled for this weekend, so I had a bunch of free time. We ended up being right next to the National Gallery Museum, and so we went inside because the museums are free, and we walked around and we saw Van Gogh's Sunflower painting and some of George Seurat's work, which, for you musical theater fans, if you know Sunday in the Park with George, one of his paintings that's featured in the show was in there, and I took a picture of it because I'm that kind of nerd. And then, since the rest of our day wasn't planned, we ended up walking through Hyde Park, and we walked across a bridge where you could see Buckingham Palace in the distance, and then we walked towards Big Ben and Parliament, and we saw that. And then we walked across the Jubilee Bridge to the London Eye area along the river, and we had lunch there. And by that time, we were all pretty tired, so we headed back. Today, my program scheduled us a high tea, and I ended up waking up not feeling too great. I got a late start, and I was a little late to the tea. And by the time I got there, the group that I was with was ready to leave, so I didn't get to spend too much time at it, but it was a very lovely setup, and I'm glad I even got to experience the little bit of it that I did. So if you see any posts about any shows I'm doing or anything that is coming up, changes are happening all the time. In the crazy theater world, you never know what happens one day to the next. But next week, I will have more information and more stories, and I'm really excited to share them with you. Bye!